Service back to pass, quick throw, complete,
Yes.
Touchdown Oilers.
A great route that time, and Jason Moore with a nice catch. And
It's Coach Keys Weekly on 88.3 WLFC.
Over the middle, intercepted by Chewy. Chewy across the 40.
Join Coach Keys and the Oilers on-air team as they take a look back at the week that was, discuss what's happening around the conference, and preview the week ahead.
Service throws, and caught late. Jason Moore went off of the front receiver's hands and right into Jason Moore's hands for the touchdown.
Now, let's join football head coach Rob Keys and the voice of Oiler football, Tim Montgomery.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Coach Keys Weekly here on 88.3 WLFC. Tim Montgomery here with the head coach of the Oilers, Rob Keys. And, Coach, let's go ahead and talk about this past week and 35-3 loss. And a week ago at this point we were talking about there wasn't enough time to go through all the expletives of what Ashland was. And to borrow from the late Denny Green, they were who you thought they were.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. Ashland's a very, very good football team. And to beat them at their place would have taken a tremendous effort and a very clean executed game by us. And that's the problem. You know, if you watch the first half of film, we went toe-to-toe right with them. The game plan worked out pretty well up until the last score. But, you know, we definitely wanted to reduce their possessions and make it a second-half game. And we did that. And unfortunately, in the second half, we did not come to play.
Well, you just talked about it, the game plan and limiting possessions, and certainly you came out with a different kind of offense than what perhaps Oiler fans are used to. Those first several drives almost exclusively on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, the first drive, you couldn't draw it up any better. I mean, we ran the ball, 8 or 9 consecutive plays and moved from one end of the field to the other end of the field and got down the red zone and a critical 4th and 1, just maybe slightly out of field goal range. And we went for it on 4th and 1. And didn't get it. But the thing I liked about it at that point, our guys, that was a chance to get huge momentum swing for Ashland, and it wasn't. We went out defensively, and we stopped them, and then we ended up blocking a punt, and we got great field position later on that corner and really needed to capitalize and score a touchdown. And those are the things against great football teams you have to capitalize on those certain plays. The 4th and 1 was one that we didn't. The 1st and goal at the 7, we ended up with 3 points. And at the end of 1, we're up 3-0. And we did it. We limited their possessions. And defensively, we did a pretty good job slowing them down when they were on the field. We created a turnover. And it looked like the way the coaching staff talked about. We got to get to the second half and keep this thing, within the distance. So in the fourth quarter, we might be able to steal a game.
Well, let's talk about you guys, a slightly different approach offensively. I felt like Ashland kind of changed up on you a little bit. They were awfully pass heavy. I mean, we talk about how they're a very balanced football team, and at the end of the day, I think they ended up there. But early on, they were very pass heavy. Did that surprise you, or was that what you expected?
I don't know if it surprised me, but the one thing we had to do, we had to stop their run. If they would have if they had success on the ground, we would have had a very difficult time stopping them. So the key component was to stop the run, and we did. But, it put our defensive backs in some situations where they were one-on-one. And I hate to say it, the tight end, Adam Shaheen, is a man playing amongst boys. Oh, and it was. And, you kid, but it's almost serious. It's like playing against Rob Gronkowski. I mean, he's big, he's physical, and he can run. And it was just a serious matchup problem. A lot of times you had 2 guys on him. On the 1 touchdown pass, 2 guys were on him, and they bounced off of him, and he drug one to the end zone. So, you can only contain an offense like that for so long, and eventually you're going to have to step up and make a play, and their guy was better at making that play than our guy.
You talked about Shaheen. Let's go ahead and talk about him. And you mentioned there was one play you had 2 men on him, and he just literally ripped the ball out of your guys' hands, and then he, for a big gain, and I believe that converted a 3rd and long on that occasion, and that was a problem for your defense. You had them in several 3rd down and longs and even a 4th down, and they converted 13 of 17 on 3rd down and perfect on the 101 of 4th down.
Yeah, we were terrible on 3rd downs on both sides of the ball. Offensively, we didn't convert on 3rd downs, and defensively, we didn't stop them on 3rd downs. So it goes back to those critical situations. We forced a lot of 3rd downs on defense and had opportunities to get off the field and just couldn't. Their playmakers ended up making more plays than our guys did. And offensively, we just struggled to get momentum. And when we had momentum, it seems like we would shoot ourselves in the foot with it. It was 7-3, And we're driving there late in the second quarter. Reese hits the big run, and it's 1st and 10 at the 25. We end up fumbling the ball. And, the score, I mean, they dominated. Hats off to Ashland. They're a very, very good football team. They are very tough to beat, and they're going to be tough to beat moving forward. But our players knew and our staff knew that an opportunity would present itself because, we're not too far behind. And there was just a couple plays that we needed to make early on in that game, which would have changed the whole complexion of that game, and we did make them. And we had several really, really good opportunities.
Well, and you talked about the block punt. Your team, we talk a lot about takeaways, and you actually led that category. You get the block punt, you force 2 fumbles that you recover, and part of the reason why, as you pointed out, you were right there really at the half. Even after that second touchdown, you're still in a position. And your defense, I thought, did a lot of nice things in that first half.
Yeah, what was bad about it, the whole thing, I mean, it's 7-3, and we had to punt the ball with 1:42 seconds to go. And one of our goals on defense is to not give up a score at the end of the half. And that was a big momentum swing. If we could have got a stop right there and took that game into halftime at 7-3, I think, I don't know if the result, win or loss, would have been different, but it would definitely come down to a couple plays late in that game, which would have gave us an opportunity to win it. But, we gave up the 14, and still, I felt that we still had a shot in that game, but we knew that they deferred and they got the ball to start the second half, and that was the critical defining moment of the game, in my opinion. The defense had an opportunity to go out there and get us the ball back, and the offense had a chance to get on track and make it 14-10, and then it's going to come down. It's going to be with a 2-touchdown game or a 1-score game if you make it 14-10. But they controlled the ball, they ran right down the field. And they converted on a very, very big series and scored a touchdown to make it 21-3. And at that point there, you're playing catch-up. And we had to spread the ball and take some chances. And we stalled. We had a couple 3-and-outs, and it led to more scoring from Ashland. But again, it goes to show you that against a really good football team like them, the opportunities present, you have to make them. If you don't, you're going to end up on the short end.
Talk about the opportunities. 3 times you settled for the field goal attempts. You get 1 of the 3 to go. Talk a little about that's the second week in a row we've kind of seen that where you had to settle for field goal attempts. Talk about the mindset or how you approach that with your offensive unit. How do you talk about adjustments to make to try to finish those things off the way that you want?
Well, the big thing in the red zone, like you said, we got to be able to run the ball between the tackles at times and get those tough yards. And we're starting to find some guys that can do that. But at the same time, the playmakers got to make those plays. We got to be able to keep the defense off balance, and we got some tall targets. We did complete a fade to Jason Moore in the red zone, but it was out of bounds. And it goes down to that, that critical time. And again, every play is critical, but when you cross into that red zone area, offensively, you got to put touchdowns on the board. And the good teams do. We can't settle for field goals. We've done that the last couple weeks. And it's funny, 3 years ago we talked about inefficiency in the red zone. And we worked hard as a staff and as a team to work on some of those situations. And last year I thought we were really good in the red zone. You look at our numbers, we were one of the better red zone teams in the league. And then this year, it's not been as good as it was last year, but the emphasis has still been the same. We've worked on red zone every single day at practice. There's not a day goes by we don't do red zone Skelly or red zone team for both sides because we know that's a critical point in the field for both offense and defense. So, guys got to capitalize. And it boils down to preparation and the detail in preparation. Those minor things you don't do during the week, they rear their head on Saturdays. And it's funny, the things you do really well on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, it seems to go really well on Saturday. So our guys know that, like I said, the margin of error is so slim, and we need to be better leading into Saturdays. So when Saturdays come, it's a reflection of what you did during the week.
Well, not to make excuses, Coach, but that's also 3 pretty good teams you've faced these last 3 weeks, and they certainly have a little bit to say about how efficient you can be in the red zone.
There's no doubt about it. You can't take any. I said that in every segment. You can't take anything away from the opponents that we played the first 3 games of the season. Saginaw Valley is a talented team, and I think that win is bigger than we all think at this point. We'll see how the season plays out for them, but I know that they're right now 2-1. They've gone back-to-back wins after that loss. And you take Ohio Dominican and Ashland; those are the reigning playoff teams and champs in the GLIAC South. And Ashland's ranked in the top 5 for a reason. There aren't too many weaknesses on that football team. I haven't seen one yet, and if they stay healthy, they're going to be tough to beat. But we have to move forward as a group, and we have to get better because there's a ton of football left. I told our team at length in the locker room after the game and also on Sunday at the meetings, we can't splinter. We need to stay together, and we need to understand that we're one team, and if we stay together and we keep practicing hard and we keep playing hard, good things are going to happen and wins are going to come. But the sense of urgency and the attack mode of taking a game from somebody has to be there. You're not going to ever play an opponent on a schedule that's just going to hand you over a victory. Yep. You're going to have to take a victory every Saturday, and you're really going to have to earn it. And our guys know that. And this week's no different. We got to rise up. We need to play to a higher standard, and understand that everything that we do in every play has to be exact. It needs to be detailed, and it needs to be run with a lot of efficiency, and it's got to be done with violence and aggression.
All right, well, let's put that one to bed. 35-3 loss. Oilers fall to 1-2 of the season. And as Coach said, moving ahead. And when we come back after this timeout, we'll talk about this week's opponent. Head to Paynesville and the Lake Erie College Storm when we return to Coach Keys Weekly here on 88.3 WLFC.
Service back to pass. Quick throw. Touchdown Oilers.
Saturday afternoon, the Oilers look to weather the storm, heading to Paynesville to battle Lake Erie College.
Over the middle. Intercepted by Chewy.
Tim Montgomery will have all the action, beginning with pregame at 12:45, kickoff at 1 o'clock.
Service throws, caught late, and right into Jason Moore's hands for the touchdown.
This is your home for Oiler football, 88.3 WLFC.
Welcome back to Coach Keys Weekly here on 88.3 WLFC. Tim Montgomery and the head coach of the Oilers, Rob Keys, as the Oilers prepare to take on the Lake Erie College Storm. And Coach, we've talked a lot in this first part of the season about you cannot take a week off. There's not an easy game on the schedule. As Jason Granger is known to say, the other team has guys on scholarship too for a reason. It might be easy for some fans and some other people to go, oh, Lake Erie is Lake Erie and they're 0-3 and all these things. But this is a team that inside those numbers are some impressive numbers.
Yeah, there are. I mean, you can say something of us. We're 1-2, and we're definitely a pretty good football team. And we're going to win a lot more games, and we're going to have a good season. But at the same time, I don't ever look at anybody's record and say, I don't respect them or we can beat them. And I said at the beginning of the year, and I said it every year that I've been here, if you aren't at your best on a Saturday, there's not one team in this league can't beat you. And people have proven it over and over. I've watched Lake Erie take Ferris State a couple years ago to the very end. I've seen them take Ashland to the very end. They're very capable, and their 0-3 record is a little misleading. They lose the first game to Northern Michigan, and they pretty much had it all but one. The 2-point conversion is incredible. The quarterback from Northern Michigan, they're down 2 with no time left, and the quarterback from Northern's rolling to the right. He's literally getting tackled and going down and throws the ball underhand up in the air to basically whoever's there, and the receiver from Northern Michigan jumps over top of the kid from Lake Erie, catches it, and gets the 2-point conversion, and ties the game and goes overtime. So Northern Michigan stole one from Lake Erie in week 1 because Lake Erie outplayed them in every facet of that game. And then they ran into a national championship contender at home against Grand Valley. And you've seen what Grand Valley has looked like the last couple years. I mean, this is one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country, and then when you play them there, it's that much harder. And they took it to them. They really did. And it's nothing against Lake Erie. It's just Grand Valley's that good. And then they played Wayne State the following week. And if there's a better offensive line in the league, there's no one better. There might be someone as good, but Wayne State's offensive line is tremendous, and they ran the ball very effectively against Lake Erie. But, again, it's a team that's scary because, I remember playing over there back in 2011, and we had to intercept the ball in the end zone against a team that everybody thought we should have blown out. So, it's a tough place to play. And their kids, after losing 3 straight games, they're like we are. A little bit of desperation, and you back a team up, they're very, very dangerous.
Well, let's go inside them a little bit here, and really a tale of two sides of the football for them. On one side, a lot of experience, a lot of guys back, a lot of guys who played a lot of football for them. On the other side, a lot of youth, but that youth has a senior leader that leads it.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, if you look at the top tacklers, I think 8 or 9 of the top 10 tacklers are all seniors. They're pretty deep across the front. They have the Keith Love defensive end. He's a senior. The middle linebacker, Zach Jude, number 5, is a senior. And I like their secondary. They have a couple good safeties in Starks and Hale are both seniors. And the corner, Marquand Richardson, is a senior too. So, you look at their defense. It's a lot of guys that's played a lot of football in this league, and they understand what it takes. And they're very talented on defense. They do a lot too. They move guys around, and they'll blitz here and there, and there's definitely playmaking ability on that side of the ball. But on offense, I've watched both sides, and offensively, I like their speed. They got some kids that can run, and the quarterback is a senior. The Banez kid is into his senior year, and anytime you got a senior as a quarterback, it definitely helps. But I like some of the skill guys they have on that side of the ball. I thought their speed is pretty good.
Well, I think their speed is pretty good on both sides of the ball, and that's something that's seemed to be a hallmark for Coach McNally's teams. I mean, they haven't always been the greatest win and loss, but they usually get athletes on both sides of the ball who can really run, and they attack, and they make things happen. I mean, you mentioned 2011, but that's been the history between these two teams, is they've been knocked down, drag-out scoring fests on both ends of the ball because of the athleticism.
Yeah, and again, their scheme on offense is tough to defend. They're going to spread the field, and they'll do some of the zone read. They'll run the quarterback. They have a kid that comes in, Javarian Smith, as a kind of wildcat quarterback who's got exceptional speed too. They play with a couple other QBs, but every quarterback they have has the ability to run. So anytime you have a running quarterback, it's that much harder to defend. And then you mix in some spread formations, and you throw out the bubble screens and the wide receiver screens, and you got to be good in open field. You got to be able to take on blocks and make tackles, and they have a good tight end. I mean, the kid is getting looks at as possibly a next level guy, Anthony Kukwa, who's a pretty good tight end and does a really good job for him. So, you look at the last two games and you're thinking, wow, this team can't be any good. And it's not the case. You watch the film, they're very, very capable, and they're capable on both sides of the ball.
Oh, yeah, Grand Valley and Wayne State are going to hang big numbers on a lot of teams this year. There's no doubt about that. You talk about some of the personnel. Another guy who kind of jumped out at me, and we talk about the speed, is that the guy who's listed as the main running back. He's another guy who can put up some numbers.
Yeah, the freshman Desmond Turner. Scat back, kind of reminds you of Bilal, kind of out of that same mold. Now, I don't think he's up to that point yet. Bilal, ended up being a tremendous back as he matured in that program, but he's definitely cut out of the same mold. He's very, very quick, and he could score at any time.
Well, then you mentioned the quarterback, Banez. You mentioned they'll do some wildcat with the other guy, but he also does some strange things. I mean, we've seen them do everything from line the quarterback up in the shotgun, but then move him in motion out to the slot. And if you're going to be a quarterback in their system, you got to be willing to do a lot of different things.
Yeah, and you got to be physically tough, because the one thing about their quarterbacks, because they're involved in the running game, they're going to take some hits and they're going to carry the ball. And I like his toughness. And again, being a senior and being in the program and understanding what it's like to play week after week in GLIAC football, you start to be hardened, and you got to be a tough kid to lead that offense. And they do a tremendous job. I know they put up some big numbers offensively over the last couple of years.
Well, let's go back to the defense. You mentioned some of the things they do, and let's go a little more into their system, because just like their offense is wide and varied, what they tend to do defensively, they will line some crazy things up. They've been known at times to kind of do that muddle thing where they just kind of stand around at the line of scrimmage and then attack you in all kinds of strange ways. Talk a little bit about how you plan for something like that.
Well, the big thing this week, we played a lot of 4-down teams the last 3 weeks, and not much variation. And Lake Erie will give you some odd stack, so you're going to see a whole different front. And then you mentioned we call it the amoeba front, where it's moving, and they'll have a bunch of guys not lined up, and then they'll insert where needed. They'll drop their defensive linemen into coverage at times. They'll run some multiple pressure packages. But I really like the way the corners and the secondary are playing, because they're giving them the ability to go ahead and do some different stuff, because I think those kids can cover. They have good speed in the back end, and they're pretty good football players.
You mentioned that this past week, Ashland, they were pressing you on the corners. Do you expect more of that from Lake Erie?
You know, you never know what you're going to get. Each week we got to prepare for everything, and we have to do a really good job offensively of taking what the defense gives us. If the defense is going to line up in a certain way, we got to be able to attack their weaknesses, both schematically and personnel-wise. And that's what good offenses do week in and week out. I know offensively there's a little bit of a bitter taste in the offensive side of the ball's mouth this week, as well as defense. But that's the first time in 5 years that 5 years and 3 games that we didn't score a touchdown in a game, and offense is not real happy about the performance when it comes to production, because their job is to score points.
Let's talk a little bit about special teams. I thought Patrick Rusher, you prefer he not have to work at all on a Saturday, that's for sure, but I thought he counted for himself very well. But a rough go for Tyler on Saturday.
Yeah, the special teams, I thought of the 3 games we played so far, the units as a whole played their best game against Ashland. I thought we did a really good job kicking off. We had the block punt. The punter did a great job of pinning them down inside the 5 one time, and he punted the ball very well. Our kickoff return teams were pretty consistent and had some decent returns, but a little disappointed in Tyler this week. He's disappointed in himself. I mean, week 1 a little inconsistent. Week 2 he bounced back and he made some great kicks. And then you turn around week 3 and a couple inconsistencies. The 46-yarder, that's a tough one to make. It's a little long. He hit it, but missed a close field goal. And I know he's not real happy with his performance right now. But the thing about Tyler, he's competitive. And I know he's going to work hard this week, and he has to understand, just like we all do, that points are important. And when we have an opportunity to score, we need to put them on the board.
And we've talked about it before. It seems kicking, kind of like a quarterback, it can be very much a mental thing. And sometimes that can be fragile, but unfortunately you don't have the time to wait for them to figure it out.
No, and it's no different than any other player. You got to forget the bad plays, and you have to move on and move on fast. And understand the next opportunity is my best opportunity, and I have to do my job and do it efficiently and do it to produce, because you're going to be called upon. And again, against ODU, he looked tremendous. He made some great kicks. He kicked off well. He kicked off well against Ashland too. It's just he missed a close field goal. When it does, it gets in your head. And I told him he's got to let it go. He's got to move forward, and because we're going to need him. We're going to need him to produce and continue to make big plays. I know in the special teams, pretty good start to the season. We're waiting. We did have a big with the block punt, but we need some big plays. We need to continue to get some big plays and maybe manufacture some easy points out of the kicking game.
Well, the first time the Oilers are going to play in the afternoon, 1 o'clock kickoff, 12:45 will be our pregame. Finish it off, Coach, with some keys of the game.
The big thing the biggest key for us is to move forward. And our guys, can't dwell on what happened in the last couple weeks in the losses. And they need to understand that we have to improve. And if we continue to improve as the season moves on every aspect of the game, offense, defense, special teams, coaching, if we continue to improve, it's going to give us a chance to win every Saturday. So, the big thing, taking away from what happened last week, it's when those opportunities present themselves, the critical situations, those first couple third downs that we have to convert, or those first couple third downs we have to stop, or that field goal we need to make. Those plays have to go our way, and I think if those plays go our way early, and that momentum gets built up, and the confidence starts to build, and you start feeding off of each phase, then we'll be okay, and we'll be able to put ourselves in position to win a game.
All right, Coach. Appreciate your time as always. Let's get out there and get a win this week.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, you've been listening to Coach Keys Weekly here on 88.3 WLFC. For Coach Keys, I'm Tim Montgomery. We'll see you next time for Oiler football on WLFC.
Service back to pass, quick throw, complete,
Yes.
Touchdown Oilers.
A great route that time, and Jason Moore with a nice catch. And
Thank you for listening to Coach Keys Weekly.
Over the middle, intercepted by Chewy. Chewy across the 40.
Tune in every Tuesday night during the season for your connection to Coach Keys and Oiler football.
Service throws, and caught late. Went off of the front receiver's hands and right into Jason Moore's hands for the touchdown.
This is your home for Oiler football. 88.3 WLFC.